Welcome to Get Off Zero. Today we've got a really special guest. We haven't had a chance to catch up in a while properly, except for that drive back from my folks' place the other day. So I'm really keen just to have a chat in general with my old friend Chris, who's CEO of CoinStop. God, you've got so many hats. Do you want to intro yourself, Chris? And we'll go from there.
Sometimes I can't keep up with it all, but it's all very exciting stuff. But yeah, thanks, Kieran. Thanks for having me on the pod. Always glad to have a chat with you. We've been friends for many years now. But yeah, like you mentioned, CEO of CoinStop, Australia's oldest and hopefully most reputable hardware wallet reseller. Been doing that since 2016. So obviously one of my passions is self custody and key management and security. Have done many different things over the years, which I'm sure we'll get into. But the other sort of main course, I guess you could say, that I work on at the moment, or there's probably two actually. One being the country manager of Australia for Bitrefill. So for people that don't know what Bitrefill is, but it's an e-commerce website where you can buy digital goods like gift cards and mobile top-ups and sort of like game credits and stuff like that. Using Bitcoin and some other cryptos. And
Lightning specifically, which is like a huge thing. Yep.
Yeah, actually, Bitrefill was, I think, one of the first sort of big companies, or at least e-commerce companies, to like get on board with Lightning. Well before I even had ever used it. And yeah, so the last thing that kind of keeps me busy these days is co-organizing Australia's first Bitcoin conference, Bitcoin Alive. So that's happening in about 40-ish days, 45-ish days or something like that, April 15th here in Sydney, Australia. So that keeps me very busy.
I can't wait for that. I reckon it's going to be so cool. And yeah, you just keep announcing like more people all the time. It's just like, this is going to be sick. I reckon we're going to have a blast. So yeah. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be really cool. Just before we kick off, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Bitcoin channel. So these videos have been posting up on the Bitcoin channel. Yeah, thanks so much for letting us do that. And apologies for my last upload spruiking IPFS, which I still think is a cool tech, but yeah, not specifically Bitcoin, I suppose. So yeah, I won't spruik that again on the channel. All right. So the premise of Get Off Zero, Chris, is basically, if you've seen any of the episodes before, it's basically documenting you and your learning journey through Bitcoin. And because it's something that sort of gets glossed over when you listen to like podcasts or interviews with people. It's like, oh, what year did you get in? And then that's it. Like they kind of don't delve into that. So that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, and keep a sort of record of like where people are at, where they're going, and then potentially even coming back to see where they are in their learning journeys. But before we sort of get into the Bitcoin sort of stuff, I always like to ask people, when was the first time that you questioned money, and was it sort of pre or post Bitcoin?
That's a good question. I have a notoriously bad memory. So this podcast is really going to test me out. But I'm keen to see if we can find some old junk in the old brain. But I think the first, so I don't think I was very interested in money or economics growing up, at least not directly that I can recall. I was very much a sporty kid. So, and I still am, even as an adult. I grew up playing sport on the weekends, after school, playing with my kid, like playing with my friends, all that sort of stuff. So,
breaking limbs.
Yeah, well, it's only the later years as I've gotten less fit and less mobile. But yeah, I think perhaps the first thing that I can recall would be like, so I guess I was a bit of a conspiracy nut when I was growing up. I found all that stuff really interesting. Grew up with the internet and would read about stuff and watch videos, and so I would always be looking at stuff like that. And I came across a documentary called Zeitgeist. I'm sure many of the listeners have probably heard of it. I don't think it's that unheard of. But that, I think that's probably one of my earliest memories. So I was at that must have been like 2007. maybe even earlier. Is that when Zeitgeist came out?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
Okay,
was.
2007. Right.
Yeah,
I remember because I remember looking into like the Twin Tower 9/11 conspiracy stuff, and then I came across Zeitgeist, and they had, I think the first one was split into three sections.
yeah.
It was like about money was one of them, definitely. Um,
Religion and yeah,
religion was one of
and
them,
then like
and
war. Essentially, it's like
war or something was the third one. Yeah.
yeah,
And so that I think was my first exposure to like questioning money and like to at least like beyond the, oh cool, it buys stuff. Like
yeah, yeah,
um
yeah. That's
that's
so
I think
interesting.
my earliest memory of going. It didn't really perhaps set off, fireworks, but it definitely got me interested, and it
Yeah,
definitely made me go, whoa, like there's some holes here.
yeah,
I think I was more interested in the other conspiracies like aliens and, like I said, 9/11 and stuff like that, that I
yeah.
didn't really latch on to the money thing. But I remember watching it at the time. At that stage, I must have been about 15 or 16. So, sort of mid to late high school.
Yep.
And I was just consuming all this stuff. My mind's really open and curious. And I was mind blown by a lot of these things. I wish I had taken a more keen interest to the money element, but I do vividly remember going, wow, this is a bit dodgy.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so crazy because like that's pretty much the same as me. But that film definitely sparked something, and I like immediately started looking for solutions to that problem specifically. And I was just like, because it really blew me away. I was just like, what? Our money's not backed by anything? Like, what the hell? And then what was more fascinating was like other people's reactions, like at the time, um, who kind of didn't care, like the apathy to that. I was just like, what? Why would you not care about that? Like that's huge. So yeah, very 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 similar then. Um, so with that, what then you sort of move forward? Like what was when was the first time you heard about BTC or came in contact with it?
Yeah, well, that one I remember quite well. um, I mean, like many people who have not come in these subsequent cycle peaks, tends to be like the big cohort of new inductees to Bitcoin is when the price goes up and hits a new all-time high. That brings along a new crowd.
Yep.
I'm sort of ancient around here. I first learned about Bitcoin like around 2011, 2012. Um, so sort of a year or two after I left high school.
Yep.
I think I was about 19. I don't remember the exact first moment, but definitely the thing that brought me into it, at least to like start looking at it, start using it, and getting familiar with the technology. I mean, was Silk Road. Being of that age group, there are certain
Right.
things you like to experiment with when you're around that age, and so I'm no different to many of the people in their early 20s. And so that was Silk Road's peak. And I found it, exceptionally interesting. Obviously, I was a bit of a conspiracy nut, and the war on drugs I thought was a little bit of a crap kind of idea. I thought there were
Yeah,
better
yeah.
ways to approach it. And so Silk Road was only a step away from that kind of thinking. I reckon. So
Mm.
that's where I first found Bitcoin. At least used it. I do have an old early memory of a friend. I can't remember the exact year, but it would have been around the time of 18, 19, same sort of time frame as we're talking about when I was looking at Silk Road. I remember going to his house, and he was like the computer guy.
Yeah.
I'm into computers, but he was the guy. He'd build machines, gaming rigs, doing all sorts of stuff. Locked up in a basement, the absolute classic computer nerd. And I remember going to his place one, I think, Friday night or Saturday night, we were having a few casual drinks and just hanging out, and went into his basement, and it was, first of all, it was really warm in there. And I thought, okay, maybe no airflow in the basement. Fair enough. Don't think
It
too
was
much of
mining.
it. Well, then I saw all these tables, and he had computers everywhere, like more than you would need for a single human. And I remember saying to him, like, what's all this stuff on the desk you got here? And he goes, oh, I'm mining Bitcoin.
GPU,
And
baby. That's
I'd heard of
awesome.
Bitcoin, but I'd not known, like, I hadn't read the white paper. I hadn't really done anything other than experiment with Silk Road. So very, very basic stuff. And, he blew my mind that night. I was asking him 1,000 questions, as you do when you first hear about it. And,
Yeah.
I left saying to all my other mates, why don't we round up $1,000 and buy a few miners and start doing what Andrew's doing?
Yeah.
It's so
Was
cool.
was it GPU at the time? It would have been, right?
GPU. Yeah, he was mining GPU. And
Awesome.
this is, price of Bitcoin at the time was, less than three digits.
$8 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, 10, $12, $15,
Yeah.
like, very, very cheap. And I remember he was mining about a Bitcoin a day at the time.
Yeah.
Just because of the hash rate and using GPUs when there were no ASICs and all that sort of stuff. So he was doing very well. Yeah, and I remember I was an apprentice. I was earning $8.50 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
$300 a week in the pocket I would get as an apprentice, first year apprentice. And so here's me pitching to my mates, hey, let's round up $1,000 to buy a few miners. And all of us are in the same boat. None of us had any money. We were apprentices. Yeah. Like $300 a week was barely enough to pay for petrol, food. Luckily, I was living at home, so I didn't have to pay for rent. But you can imagine if you did, you'd have nothing left. So we didn't do it. We didn't take the punt because we didn't have the conviction, I guess. But I remember saying at the time, let's do it. And that's one of those moments I look back on. I go, it could have gone a different way, but I wasn't ready. Wasn't ready for that level of exposure when it came to Bitcoin. But yeah, those are kind of like my first early memories of Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Yeah, I was GPU mining probably around the same time, and I remember I still kick myself over it, like turning it off because it was too hot, and not getting enough return. So it's like like you said, like 1 BTC or whatever. I'm like, that's nothing. Literally turn it off. It's crazy. But that's really interesting. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Sort of looking back, and hindsight's 2020, I suppose. But it's fascinating. So Silk Road, do you follow Ross Ulbricht on Twitter?
I'm not actually sure if I do follow on Twitter, but like I check in every now and then to see like what's the latest. Not that a whole lot has really changed, but I feel terrible for Ross. Like,
man. It's
I
really
think
sad.
he's been made to be a massive scapegoat in this entire thing. And this is what got me interested in all this stuff. Cause I've always been of the opinion, well before COVID, when I was growing up as a teenager, that, no one should have the right to say what someone else ingests or put into their body. So, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it could be a Panadol, it could be a Big Mac, it could be heroin, it could be COVID-19 vaccination. It could be anything, whatever you want. But to me, I always grew up with the feeling that it's a very personal decision. Yeah. There are obviously bad things. Like, I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, everyone should start doing heroin, because that's a terrible idea. And I wouldn't advocate for that at all. But if you want to do it, that's your choice. I can't stop you. I can certainly encourage you not to. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to force you to do it or force you not to do it. That's your choice. And so, he didn't, for me, he was just running a website on the internet, or on the darknet in this case. But, this is no different to current illegal activity that happens on the internet. Should the CEO of the internet be thrown in jail because, there's credit card fraud and there's, underage child pornography and all sorts of terrible things that we find on the internet? Well, no, that's a ridiculous notion. The internet is used for many and mostly good things. Doesn't mean we go and ban, Google because someone had a website on Google that was scamming people or something. Like, they're not liable, right? And that's how I kind of feel about Ross. That itself, he got like 4 life sentences or something, or 7 life sentences plus 40 years or something. Like, it's ridiculous for running a website where people sold stuff. Like, he wasn't the one. Actually, I think he was actually selling some initially, like selling some mushrooms that he was, but again, a mushroom goes on the bloody ground. Like, anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I always felt kind of pretty bad for Ross, because I feel like they've really made, I mean, it's arguably worse than what it was when Silk Road was around. There are, thousands of marketplaces now.
Yeah.
They literally can't keep up with them. They shut them down, 10 more open up. They're not going to stop this. Like, that's the nature of the technology, is they can't really do much about it. They can try to, get inroads and see where they make mistakes like they did with Ross. But at the end of the day, like, the problem is much worse now, just because you locked one guy away for, like, it was very much a campaign just to get that one guy to raise the victory flag, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, really sad. And like you obviously listen to his mum, who I gotta say she's awesome. Like you hear her doing public speaking and all that sort of thing. She's upskilled herself on the technology, and yeah, she's like not stopping until he's free. But like you listen to his or read his Twitter, and it's like it's really sad, like how he's has to live now, like the conditions he's in. Sounds just awful. And yeah, like you said, for what? For building
Running
a
a website.
website? Well, and building a website that actually helped people, right? So like, there's even like police officers that have said, in that time frame, they noticed significant drop in crime. I forget where from, but drop in crime, um, specifically because these people who were addicted to whatever didn't have to go to like nasty neighborhoods
Yep.
and deal with nasty people. So you actually like save people's lives, but he gets punished for that. It's really, yeah, really awful. Anyway, let's move on to you. But yeah, shout out to Ross if you can ever hear this. That'd be yeah,
Yeah, we're rooting for you.
hope you get free one day soon, hopefully. Um, so yeah, the my next question is usually about shit coinery and your journey with that, and I think that's something that, like, as Bitcoiners, we've probably all been through and all sort of dabbled in different altcoins and different blockchain projects, etc. We both worked together at the blockchain center back in the day, that morphed from the Bitcoin center, which is, yeah, like, it was so sad to see that change actually in hindsight, because it was such a cool space that kind of went down the route of the whole blockchain rebranding. But yeah, like, what's your experience been with that, and where are you at now with shitcoinery? I think I know the answer already, but
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a good question, and like you said, I think most of us, if not all of us, have dabbled or fallen down that path at some point in time for a number of different reasons, I'm sure. But yeah, for me, like I obviously I started with Bitcoin. It was the only one around. It was there purely for means of access. But it wasn't until about 2016 where I sort of was a little bit older and I sort of circled back to Bitcoin. It was about 2015, circled back to Bitcoin, and saw that it was still around, and it was being used, talked about in more ways than simply Silk Road that it had for the first sort of 5 years of its lifespan. And so that's when I picked up the white paper for the first time and had a read of that. And that really blew my mind. That really blew my mind. And I wish I'd done that in 2011, because that would have been the thing that said, okay, let's get that $1,000. Let's start mining. And I would have saved a lot of years. But anyways, a lot of people have that story too. So that's not unique in any regard. But yeah, so like you mentioned, I got involved, with the community. I was living in Melbourne at the time. I'm a social creature. I wanted to meet other people and talk about Bitcoin related things. And so I found that same Bitcoin center, and there are a number of Bitcoin companies and startups working from that. And there were meetups happening at least once a week, if not more. And it started out with just kind of a couple of dudes around a few pizza boxes and some six packs. And like I mentioned earlier, with every price rise of Bitcoin, we see more people enter the space and get excited and make money and hear all the promises. So I think the shitcoinery happened because I hung around a lot of the community, and everyone got really excited about all these opportunities that blockchain and cryptocurrency were set to deliver. And when you don't, for me, this was my very first time moving into entrepreneurship and running businesses, and so I was learning a lot. I was learning really fast, which is the way I like to learn. But I don't have a degree in business, or I don't have a degree at all. I dropped out of my university degree, which was computer science, because I don't like that type of learning. But I'm sure you've got opinions on that as well, given your background. But yeah, it was easy for me to be fooled by the flashy lights and the big promises. And we're talking 2016, 2017, and so this is where it was really exploding with all of the other projects, thanks to Ethereum and ICOs and all that sort of stuff. For anyone that was around back then, it went from a handful of coins to thousands of coins in a matter of 12 to 18 months. And so, being involved with that community in Melbourne, we were getting a lot of these projects coming through and doing road shows and presentations. And so I was there at these meetups, and a lot of them were pretty terrible, and Melbourne had a bit of a thing for ripping apart these projects when they came to town and asking the hard questions. And I was part of that cohort. But at the same time, it was still easy to kind of go, okay, well, yeah, look, maybe blockchain could improve logistics or supply chains when you don't know enough about it. And the I want to say science, but the research and the papers behind it were limited. Like
the technicals, yeah.
The technicals were very unknown. It was all theoretical, and people were whipping up websites and raising $50 million on white papers, with more color than white on it. So, I fell into that trap like many of us did too. We all thought that it was going to revolutionize the world. We saw what Bitcoin did, and now we thought, wow, look what smart contracts are going to do. Look what this is going to do. And all these new the consensus mechanisms were coming out of everywhere. Proof of stake, proof of, I can't even remember half of them now because a lot of them are dead. But there was so many, proof of importance, proof of, there was just everything, right? And to me, like barely 12 months into this whole thing professionally, I thought, wow, look at the opportunities they're everywhere. So I took I ate the bait, and I believed a lot of that stuff for many years.
Yeah.
And so being part of that community, I met other like-minded people. And through that we formed, similar ideals and similar passions. And then, on the back of that, we actually formed our own project, looking at privacy. So we were all kind of pretty keen on privacy, and still am to this date, pretty keen on privacy. Always an advocate for it. And Bitcoin, the narrative was Bitcoin was too slow. It couldn't do all these other things. So, we wanted to build a particular thing, and we didn't think Bitcoin was either ready for it or had the possible technical aspects to deliver what we were trying to do. And so it was, again, the shortcut is to go the easy route, to build it on something that does allow for some of the aspects, but compromises on some of the others. Just, and that's the blockchain trilemma, I guess, that many of us know about. But yeah, that that got me into shitcoinery. I didn't call it that at that stage. I was very much excited to just be working in the space, learning a lot, doing things that at least were close to my ideals. I think digital privacy is a very important thing, and I wanted to try help build products that gave other humans better digital privacy. So to me, it felt like a net positive. And it wasn't until I grew and got more matured and understood Bitcoin better and everything else as well, that I realized that, the more and more you look at it and the more you poke into it, the more holes are created. And eventually, like, I was just looking through everything. It was just no substance whatsoever. And every cycle since has kind of confirmed that, so 2017 kind of fooled me a little bit. And then the bear market came, and I was like, okay, let's reflect on all of that. There's a lot of learnings to be had there, a lot of broken promises, a lot of terrible ideas that couldn't be
vaporware.
Vaporware. Perfect word. Vaporware for sure. And so, come 2021, I was much more skeptical. Like the obvious stuff was easy. Like even in the shitcoinery days, like BitConnect was one of the ones that I was really against. Yeah. Absolute classic scam. And, and there were people being fooled by it, coming to the community saying, oh, I made so much money, it's working every day. I'm getting my returns. And like, well, that's how they work until they don't. And the one day that they don't work, it's over. There's no like, oh, we're down for maintenance. It's it. They've done it. They've completed the exit scam. It's all over. And, so I was warning people about BitConnect and all the other ones that were very much like that. But, now I've realized that pretty much everything else in crypto is a version of that, perhaps not as aggressive or as obvious, but is largely vaporware and noise. And so I've kind of come full circle. I started with Bitcoin and, a friend of mine, Alex, calls it climbing Mount Stupid. And I quite like that. I climbed Mount Stupid, got to the top, looked at the view, thought the view sucks. I'm going to climb back down to the bottom. And so some people are still on their way up the mountain. Some people are stuck. Some people
I
have
like
built
that.
camps
I like
on
that.
it.
Yeah,
And some
yeah.
people are just on top, and they're going to eventually run out of oxygen because they're at such a high altitude of stupidity. So, yeah, I think it's a really cool analogy.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
again, make some funny jokes about it as well. But yeah, like, I admit it. I climbed up that same mountain, and it was a journey. It was an experience. It's who I am today. It's what I know now. But very much I'm, like you said, 100% focused on Bitcoin now. I don't see any other reason. I'm still open-minded, but it's going to take a lot to even consider something. Like I've just seen it all time and time again. I'm not trying to say I know it all. I don't.
What about yield? Yeah.
Yeah, they all come crashing down. It's just
Yeah.
like time and time again. I've been doing CoinStop for 7 years, telling people to get their coins off exchanges. Don't put them in risky places. Put them on a hardware wallet. Secure your keys. No matter how many times I tell them, they still seem to want to do it because the yield, because the APY,
Mm-hmm.
because blockchain's the next best thing, or whatever
Yeah.
the hell they've justified to themselves. But they all end up getting wrecked. So
JPEG. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't know if you listened to like any of the ordinal stuff recently, but the thing
a
that
little bit.
blew my mind, that I had no idea with the JPEGs on Ethereum, they were just pointing to AWS servers for the actual
You didn't know
file.
this?
I didn't know that. I thought, oh,
Oh
there must be.
wow, that was like one of the big criticisms from basically day dot, was just like, what is even this product? Like,
I think
it's
I just like blocked all of it out, but like I listened to a
just
podcast. I was like,
some
what?
encryption pointing to, like you said, an AWS server.
Like, how would
Right
you
click, save as.
look like legit right click? But like there's literally like 404 errors now for people going to the NFT. It's like,
Yeah.
really mental, absolutely mental.
So I'm much more skeptical and stuff like that these days now. Like, I feel like in 2017, if someone said to me like NFTs, they're gonna, like, you could do memberships and you can all
Yeah,
this sorts of like art, and I would have gone, okay, that's a pretty cool use of blockchain technology. Maybe that'll take off. Whereas now I'm like, nah, highly doubt it. like
yeah.
why using blockchain? You need to prove to me that it's a useful, why, like,
Yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
inefficient, it's so cumbersome, like, it's not to be used. There's a reason why, like, pretty much everything is centralized and on centralized databases, because it's so smooth, it's so cheap, it just works for the most part. Obviously, again, it lacks its decentralization, arguably security, but doesn't mean putting them on a blockchain instantly solves those problems.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah, it's crazy. Like thinking back, like I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, but back, God, it would have been like 2015. Back at school, we set up a thing called Art of Proof, and basically the concept was kind of the inverse, I suppose, of an NFT, because it was like physical art with a company called iJack, so you could like annotate animations over like augmented reality artwork. And what we did, it was like when the McAfee decks launched. You could like spin up a token, like one token for like whatever project it was, and we like physically put that on the artwork. And we're like, oh, this is really cool. Like you can buy the hash and then buy the artwork as well. And I think we sold them for like $1 or something, like on the network. But it was awesome, like for the kids to see that and like get value for like what they've created, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. Like I think there's something there, but it just hasn't been done properly. Like there's definitely
Perhaps.
a way to I suppose reward artists in a way that's not using the legacy system, but I'm guessing it's probably some sort of lightning solution for that, not ordinals. And I like the idea of physical art, like utilizing that and using like the BTC network for that, but I don't know how to do that, but maybe in the future. So a bit of a shameless plug in the middle here, but this podcast is sponsored by Amber, and they're a really awesome DCA tool. If you haven't done DCAing in the past, it stands for dollar cost averaging. And the question to you, Chris, is do you DCA?
Yes is the answer. And I recommend Amber as well. This sounds like the biggest setup. I had no idea this was even coming, but I've been a huge fan of Amber for many years, and I've been dollar cost averaging over the course of that time period as well. And I find it's like, I'm not a trader, and maybe we would have gotten into this point later in the pod or not, I'm not sure, but those that already might know me or have seen me on Twitter would perhaps know that I've been not checking the price of Bitcoin for, I think now I'm at 440 odd days or something like that.
Awesome.
So it's basically since the 1st of January 2021, I haven't checked the price of Bitcoin. Sorry, 2022. I haven't checked the price of Bitcoin. So over a year now, a year and 3 months. Wow, damn, that's gone a long time. And over that entire time, I've just been dollar cost averaging every single day, daily, set and forget. Means I don't have to check the price. I don't have to worry about the volatility. I know that over the course of a long enough time period, which is the conviction I have, that Bitcoin is going to continue to succeed. People are going to understand its scarcity properties. There's going to be more people flooding in. The demand is going to increase. The supply is going to get even more scarce. Put 2 and 2 together, seems like a good investment. And for me, I don't want to be checking the price every day. I don't want to have to be going, shit, maybe I should have waited till tomorrow when the price drops 20% and I'll be cheaper, or damn, it went up 40%. I'm an idiot. Like, there's just too many unknowns. So dollar cost averaging is the thing that I recommend everyone should be doing. I think even if they're trading, they should just have like a base dollar cost average. This is my savings technology. And then if you want to go and speculate and trade, then I mean, sure, I think it's a mug's game, but I mean, each to their own. If they want to go and do that, then go for gold. But dollar cost average is your safety net. It's your savings for the future. It's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
It is, and it's like stress-free as well. Like, even if it's like, $5 a week, like, you're not gonna miss that, and everyone should be doing it. It's a coffee, exactly right.
You should probably drink one cup coffee less a week. That would be beneficial probably to your health.
Yeah. I gave up coffee recently and
really?
got crazy headaches and stuff. So yeah, I definitely need to drink less coffee for sure.
Wait, so did you have some more?
Yes, I did actually. No, you know what I did? I had so it was unbearable. I was like day 3. I was just like, I'm getting migraines. This is nuts. And I've given up in the past, but it was never this bad. So I ended up having a Coke, which I rarely drink, and that, like, the caffeine got rid of the headache. I'm like, this is insane how addictive like coffee is. It's just
You're saying it's medicine.
I suppose so.
Wait, we should be like putting disclaimers. This is not financial advice or health advice.
Yeah, not health advice.
We give no good advice.
Just bad advice. Except for DCAing.
DCAing is great advice. Yes. Go and do it, and do it with Amber.
Now, exactly. Now, I think I know the answer to this next question, but custodial. Have you got any custodial BTC at all, or are you all non-custodial?
Oh, I mean, look, there's temporary custodial. As I dollar cost average, I sort of wait until it gets to a certain number. Yep. And then I extract that to a hardware wallet device, just pure, because I dollar cost average daily. I don't particularly want to be withdrawing daily either. Yeah. So unless the exchange supports Lightning and that becoms a reality, which I think
it's on the horizon. I think
it might be coming. Yeah, and if it's not, it bloody should. I mean, there's still so little Lightning support at exchanges. I know there's a handful. There's a few overseas. I don't think there are any Australian exchanges that support Lightning. I could be wrong about that, and I apologize if I am, but pretty sure that is the fact.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing, but I'm pretty sure Amber's going to be the first from what I've heard.
I have a feeling they're working on it or something as well. But I think at that stage, then I'll be doing daily dollar cost averaging.
That's awesome. So you're DCAing daily. Good on you.
I think so. Here's my rationale for that, and I don't know if I haven't done any more thinking than like about 30 seconds. Like, that sounds logical, and then I've stuck to that idea. So feel free to poke holes in it if you think it's got holes. But like, we know Bitcoin is volatile. By minute, by day, by week, by hour, like on any interval, it's we don't know where it's going next. And this is why I dollar cost average, because I want to take the guesswork out. But I'm under this impression that if I was to move it from like a daily to say like a weekly or a fortnightly or even a monthly, I would have less of an average of those shorter time periods as that volatility occurs. So like, let's say, for instance, I wanted to invest $100 over the course of 7 days. If I did that once a week, say on a Sunday, like I might catch a really bad trend on that Sunday, like a 40% drop or a 40% increase or something like that. And then it might swing back down the next day back to that equilibrium, and then carry on kind of chilling out for the next 6 days. And so my idea is if I spread that $100 across the 7 days, I'd only get not wrecked, but worse odds, if you want to call it, on that one day where that
less
extreme
sats.
less sats, less sats. Essentially, I'm trying to collect as much sats as possible. So that's my theory. So like the idea being, it's just the same principle of dollar cost averaging, right? Like spreading it out over time. So the more frequent you do it, the better the averaging gets. Versus if you just did it
I reckon that's awesome.
Weekly. So that's why I recommend daily. I'd love someone to like maybe try to like tell me I'm wrong about that, because I don't actually know. But to me, that sounds like it makes it's logical and it has common sense behind it. But
yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Some people like to tie it up with their like paycheck, right? So like, I'll do it every fortnight because that's when I get paid. I'll take it straight out. I don't have to deal with it again. Like, and that's fine. Like everyone has their own way of living life and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying what I'm doing is completely right. I'm just saying what I'm doing. Well, actually,
that's a
fine
good
with
point.
It.
That is a really good point. So for some people, paycheck comes in and they spend it on shite. So to get sats instead, like that makes a lot of sense. If you're gonna sort of start, if you haven't got the discipline to hang on and sort of do that, then yes. But no, I think what you said makes a lot of sense as well. Like why not? If you can, if you've got the opportunity, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just the way I like to do it. So I'll just preload a bunch of fiat onto the exchange platform, set up my daily rules, and then I might every 3 months go in and top up, or however often it needs to, depending on how much I've loaded in there. Obviously, you perhaps don't want to keep too much on there in case the exchange goes funny or whatever. So again, it's entirely up to you how you manage that. But yeah, I like daily. It also goes to the ethos of, do I have more sats than I did yesterday? I can pretty much say that every day of the year, other than perhaps if I spend some, which I typically would replace anyway.
Well, you're spending and replacing anyway, right? So yeah,
that's what I would do. Yeah. So for me, like I like to be able to say, I got more sats today than I did yesterday, and I can say the same tomorrow.
Absolutely, I love it. I know the answer to this question as well, but hardware wallets, signing devices. I think we've had this conversation like about the nuances between like what those terms mean, but you're like obviously you running multiple hardware wallets, but what's your go-to? What's your favorite?
It's a tough question. So yeah, I've tried many. There's still many I haven't tried as well. I always come back to the Bitbox. It's like a bit of a left field answer. So the Bitbox 02, the second edition, you can get it as a multi-coin hardware wallet, but then you can also get it as a standalone BTC only. So for a Bitcoiner, that would be the one that you'd probably preference. But I just really like the user experience of interacting with the buttons and then like entering your passcode and all that sort of stuff. So most people have probably used a Ledger or a Trezor or something of that nature. Ledger's obviously the most popular and most commonly found hardware wallet. Supports lots of shit coins. So it's great for people who have diversed in all the different cryptos out there. For me, not of an interest, but if you think of the buttons on the classic Ledger Nano S, they are a little small. And entering your PIN code by going up with the right, and then okay, click, and then you go up. Oh, I've gone too far. Go back, and then it's a little bit cumbersome. And you hit enter with both of them. And so, what I like about the
try doing that with a room full of year 4 kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was torture, but awesome at the same time.
Yeah, and so with the Bitbox, they have this cool kind of like invisible buttons, I guess. I don't know what they call them. They probably have a cool, catchy name for them. But it's just like a touch screen, and it's just like a slider as well. So it's just the interaction with entering your PIN code is like a touch screen on a mobile phone, just on one of the edges of the device. And there's like I said, you can slide it. So for instance, when typically these hardware wallet screens are pretty small unless you get one that has like a big screen that specifically solves the problems of not being able to put the entire string on the screen. So, but the Nano S and the Trezor, all these small kind of devices typically face the same problem, Bitbox being the same one. But I do like that they have the slide function, and it kind of allows you to more accurately and clearly get the entirety of, like, so say you're checking the address you're sending to. Like most people, they check the first few, check the last few. Very few people check the entire string.
Yeah,
good habit, but a slow one.
That's right.
With the Nano S, you're gonna cut it, click, and then it goes there, and then you like with this, you can slide and go back and forth real nicely. I don't know, it's a small touch, but I find it a nice one. Like every time I plug it in, I'm like, oh, cool, I get to use it like this, So I guess it's left an impression on me. So I'd say like that one. I actually have like a cold card here sitting in a packaging.
Sick. Yes.
I think this is the MK3 or 4. I can't remember which one.
4. It looks like I've got the same one. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
hands
still
down.
haven't opened it. I need to set that up. That one's, I think
it's not like entry level. Like you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I figured that, and I'd like to hope I know what I'm doing, or at least can figure out how to know what I'm doing.
You'll be fine. But like for someone like just jumping in, it's definitely not the go-to, I don't reckon.
And that's what makes it tricky. Like doing what we do with CoinStop is like, I've got my favorites and you've got yours, but at the end of the day, we need to like recommend something that's useful for the customer.
Solid.
So,
yeah.
I get lots of customers call up and, I need something for Ripple and I need something for Cardano, and I'd love to tell them just dump it all and put it on Bitcoin, because
I'm surprised you don't.
Well, I try working in, but at the same time, I don't want to belittle or like be too harsh on these people who probably at the early stages of their learning experience, like I was several years ago. So I put in little sneaky jabs, like, when they ask, what do you think? I'll go, well, look, personally, I'm not that interested in any of the other stuff. I hold only Bitcoin because I think it's and then I go to, there's my opportunity to try Orange Pillen. But yeah, so you have to kind of be open to like recommending something that's useful for that particular person's situation. So, I'm not going to say get a BTC only hardware wallet, because that's what I think they should have, but they're holding like 100 different cryptos. Like, at the end of the day, I put my personal opinions aside with like investment choices, if you want to call them. And I'm trying to help them be secure. So like, if they're going to hold shitcoins, let's at least make sure they don't get hacked and they don't lose them or they don't get rugged. And then we can work on the orange pilling at a later date, and we can say, hey, maybe it's a good time. You saw what happened last cycle. Maybe it's a good time that we get rid of that and move it into Bitcoin or something. We can. That's a separate problem. At least let's get them secure so they're not losing their capital. Because it is unfortunately, Bitcoin gets wrapped into these cryptos. It's all one to most people.
I know.
To Bitcoiners, they can see the separation.
Yeah.
But when all these bad things happen, people get scammed. They go, well, that's it. I'm over it. It's all a scam. Bitcoin, crypto, Ethereum, whatever. It's all a scam. And it's not a fair representation when, hey, they get rugged on some meme coin because it was always a scam.
Shiba Inu.
It's Cum Rocket is not Bitcoin, and it's not even close. Yeah. And I'm not being rude. That is literally the name of a crypto project. Cum Rocket. Like, and people bought this stuff. It's ridiculous. But if they're going to buy it, at least let's try keep it safe for them.
Yeah, it's true. Very, very true. Gosh, so with the what's the name of your favorite one?
The Bitbox.
Bitbox 02, wasn't it?
Yeah, the second edition. Yep.
Is that open source?
Yes, I believe it is completely open source. I want to say it is.
That sounds cool. I'd like to have a play with it. It sounds like it's definitely worth having a crack with. It's
I think you'd enjoy it.
That's something that you sort of opened my eyes to with Ledger. One, obviously being closed source, but two, the battery issues that it has versus some of the other hardware wallets. And I thought, geez, that's really something to consider, especially like I know you said for altcoiners, it's fine on the learning journey, but it's definitely like it's not something you just set and then that's it. Like you need to sort of go on a learning journey with that, and then potentially, move over to something that's more open source and more secure for the long time.
I can
So,
confirm that the Bitbox is open source.
oh, awesome. So with that, are you doing multi-sig at all, or have you dabbled with multi-sig? Because I know it's a big step for a lot of people to start using multi-sig and figuring it out, and kind of migrating from just, I've got my keys on a hardware wallet or a signing device, to I'm gonna, interact maybe with someone else to have better security. Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, look, I don't want to talk too much about what I do with my security just for
Fair enough.
OPSEC reasons,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I can talk more broadly about some of the experiences I've had. So I have used back in my actually in my shitcoining days, we set up some multi-sig stuff for the foundation. So, 2 or 3 signatories on accounts so that people couldn't rug us from the inside.
Yeah.
So similar to like a banking security key or a 2 to 3 to sign on an account, similar type setup. We did that. It was really cumbersome. I was still quite novice in that regard, so I didn't really help set up. We used hardware wallets, so obviously I generated the hardware wallet key and knew all that stuff. But this was actually for Ethereum at the time, so we had to have someone actually help us set up a multi-sig on Ethereum. I can't even remember what we did. It was like a good 5 years ago. This is like a long time ago. But generally, like, I think for the everyday person, this will be controversial, but I feel like multi-sig is probably overkill for most people. And
I'm going to push back on that, but yeah, go ahead.
and I think it's fair to push back on it, because I'm not sold on it. I just think, looking at my experiences with 10,000 plus customers who have bought wallets off us over the years, they're not ready for multi-sig. Some of them would be, and if they've kept up their experiences and all that sort of stuff over the years, then yeah, maybe. But I've helped people where we've jumped on a video call and I've spent 15 minutes getting them to share their screen with me, so I could see what they're seeing on their app or whatever. They don't even know how to share a screen on Zoom or something like that. So those people are very far away from multi-sigs.
Yeah,
they're struggling just with hardware wallets, or even 2FA. Like they don't even know what that is, and it's really, really difficult to get them across the line with something like multi-sig. But what I would say is, for anything of significant value, and I certainly can't define that for you, being a listener. I think that's up to you to decide what is significant value. That could be 10 million, that could be 1 billion, that could be 25,000, whatever that number is for you. If it's very, like, almost, usually I say if it's life-changing money, put it on a hardware wallet. If it's like generational changing money, then I'd probably multi-sig it.
Yes.
That's like the real general loose advice that I typically give. So, if it's a business and we're talking about $50 million balance sheet and there's multiple directors and all that sort of stuff, then it's kind of a no-brainer to go, okay, let's look at a multi-sig setup. If we're talking about maybe like a family office or a high net worth individual or something like that, and they've got, multiple beneficiaries or something, that, multi-sig certainly would be perhaps a good option. For the everyday person, I actually find doing a multi-sig setup of your seed phrase to be perhaps an easier route that offers additional security than just holding a hardware wallet.
Right.
So I'll explain what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So with your standard 12 or more commonly with some of the hardware wallets, 24 words, typically most people will write that down on a piece of paper, generally the one that comes in the box that's labeled 1 to.
Yep.
And well, hopefully they're not throwing it away. Hopefully they're putting it somewhere safe.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, we've all seen it. But I think most people will probably put it back in the box and then put the box in like a drawer in the office, or in a shoebox under the bed, or I don't know, in a safe in the basement or something like that, right? And so that's pretty good, and you've taken the step to get a hardware wallet and to generate your keys and keep them offline and all the good stuff. So that's great. But if you wanted to take it to the next level and perhaps not go down like a multi-sig route with multiple hardware wallets, what you could do is you could split your seed up. into
Mm.
different parts.
Okay.
So think of your 24 words as 3 sets of 8, right? So the first 8 words are set A, the next 8 set B, the last 8 is set C. And so what you could do is you could split those words up into take A and B, so 2 parts, 2 of 3, and put that in one location. Take B and C, put that in a second location, and then take A and C and put that in a third location. And now what you've effectively done is you've multi-sigged, for a better lack of term, your seed phrase. And so, you could keep one in your house. If your house floods, gets burgled, burns down, you've lost A and B. Obviously terrible thing, but not the end of the world. You've still got location 2, which has B and C, and you've got location 3, which has A and C. And from those 2 locations, you have all 3 parts. And the idea being that one single location being compromised doesn't compromise the entirety of your security. And so this can be done very cheaply. So there's no need to have technical knowledge on how to set up smart contracts or multi-sig things or special software or anything like that. You can literally do this on pieces of paper. I recommend steel if we're talking about long-term storage, just because paper is, again, if you're putting it in a ground or you're putting it somewhere, it can be damaged quite easily. So again, we're talking about significant amounts of money. We're not doing this for $100 worth of Bitcoin. We're doing this for $1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 100 million, whatever that number is, a significant amount of money. So yeah, I like that. I think that's a cool way to kind of, as an individual, perhaps take it slightly to the next level.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, I know I did watch a video a while back from Andreas Antonopoulos criticizing that method. I can't exactly remember what he said.
I'd be curious to see. I mean, I'm sure there are criticisms.
Yeah, he kind of went. It was like a full hour video talking about it. And you know how good he is. Like he can crystallize stuff.
I'll debate him. Put him on. Get him on.
But you know that's but no, I'll find it and send it to you because it's definitely worth sort of reconsidering. Have you played around with Nunchuck at all?
No, I haven't. No, I need to. There's so many things I need to play around with, and like that's the exciting thing with Bitcoin is it's like almost going too fast. I can't keep up. Like I either need to stop doing stuff, like stop building things, stop working on projects, and just consume, be an end user. Yeah, all the stuff that's been built, test it out, get on the alphas, or I need to, find a way to make money and make a living, and also build stuff that I'm passionate about, but at the risk of not being able to keep up with what the latest cool release is.
Well, so I think it's
Nunchuck is not one that I've tried.
It's something you'll dig for sure, and it's bridged. I've talked about it on the podcast a bunch of times, but I was just blown away by how it's bridged security and usability. Like it's just it's usually one or the other. Like they've done it, and then I don't think they're getting the props for what they've built. To be honest, like they haven't got that many Twitter followers. Like they're such a great piece of tech that's doesn't get the spotlight it sort of deserves. But basically, you can get a tap signer, which is like a NFC card, and you literally I set my parents up with this. That's how easy it is to use. Talk about sharing screens, God, torture trying to get them to share their screen. But I got them to learn what multi-sig is through Nunchuck, and basically what you get your phone, tap it to the back, it initializes. That's your key, right? So you don't have to remember any 12 words or anything, or 24 words. You can keep that in a safe location, and basically the other person does that, or you do 2 or 3 or 5, whatever. And it's literally through a chat program. So I open up, we can just have Kieran and Chris in a chat, initialize, boom, we got multi-sig. It's that simple. It's actually really fun. To geek out, I was just like, wow, this is it's because you said, doing multi-sig back in the day, I remember doing it with NEM and even BTC back in the day, and it was super clunky and annoying. With Electrum, it was it works, but it's nobody's going to do this, but these guys have nailed it. So when we get some time, I reckon let's have a play, and I'll set you up with actually we need to get you a seed not seed signer, tap signer, So you can have a play with that. But yeah, definitely worth looking into. So the next sort of progression in my learning journey, it's just kind of how I sort of learned about stuff, is hash rate. So the importance of hash rate. We both started up a company last year. Actually, you've still got the sign in the background there, Alpha Hash Rate, talking about basically mining, immersion mining, and all that. And I'm sure we'll have. Well, I'm excited to see the demos actually at Bitcoin Alive for the immersion mining. But the importance of hash rate. Have you gotten off zero hash rate yet? And what's your plans with that?
It's a good question. No, I'm still on zero, unfortunately. Well, yeah, look, I run through so many different ideas that I guess we can go back a step then. So I obviously shared the story about missing out on the early hash rate back in 2012, and I've largely felt like I've missed the boat on the hash rate pretty much up until about the last maybe 18 months, even though it's even higher than it ever was, and it continues to go even higher. I finally realized, you got to participate. Otherwise, it's just how it is. You got to put in the work. That's proof of work, right? So I still want to, but the thing is, I don't want to really manage much of it. I know that's a bit of a cop out, because I just said proof of work. Like if I have a significant amount of hash rate, I don't particularly want it at home for the reasons that are perhaps obvious. High electricity consumption, a lot of heat generation,
noise,
super loud noises. All of the classic reasons why this has largely become like big warehouses full of miners now. So yeah, that's what, and that's how we kind of got onto this idea of alpha hash rate, which was, trying to solve, our own problems. Essentially is, we want to have hash rate. We want to have it locally, but perhaps not like in a bedroom in the house. What can we do about that? And, there are a few places that offer some hosting services here in Australia. But, had slightly different ideas of what I wanted to get out of it, specifically like through immersion mining. As far as I know, at least yet, I don't think anyone's offering like, sort of B2C immersion mining hosting as a service, I guess you could call it. And that's where the idea of alpha hash rate kind of went. We had a really tough winter here in Australia and like much of the world. And electricity prices went beyond the roof. They were already through it. Now they're in the stratosphere. Things have settled down a little bit, which is nice. But, I guess the whole thing about it is like, I want to explore bringing more hash rate down under, and also finding ways for the Australian grid to get better, because I'm sick of having every winter being told not to turn the heater on because the grid's under stress, and at the same time having my prices go up. So being told I can't use it, but if I was to use it, it's going to cost you more. So, and that's the same story around the entire country. And, we've got an abundance of energy all around us ready to be captured, but, for one or two reasons, or perhaps more, it's not happening, which is really frustrating. And I think Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining might just be the answer to a lot of those problems. And if you listen to mainstream media, you would probably think the contrary to that, because if you did, they would be telling you that, Bitcoin mining is bad for the environment and greenhouse gases and emissions and all sorts of buzzwords to make you scared about Bitcoin mining and how it uses the electricity of Denmark and all this sort of stuff that's shocking. And, how dare you support such a thing? But if you take the time, and it's not simply consuming, 5-minute bit on a current affair, you've actually got to read, tens, hundreds of hours of work to come to these understandings that actually Bitcoin mining is one of the tools that can help those problems. Grid stabilization, funding for new energy generation. So these are the things that I'm really interested in, and that's kind of where we wanted to take alpha hash rate. It's currently a bit on pause on the back burner, but that's not to say it won't unpause at some point in the future. Still something I'm exploring, and I think is really important. And we've got lots of startups here as well that are doing similar things as well. Like, looking, Firmus in Tassie are doing some pretty interesting stuff with renewables and Bitcoin mining.
I think the best example is on your t-shirt.
Volcano mining. Yeah. No, we don't unfortunately have any volcanoes here. But in El Salvador they do.
In terms of a green initiative that's like helped a lot of people, essentially like UBI over proof of work with a volcano. Like it's insane. That should get more positive press, but unfortunately, El Salvador at the moment is getting negative.
I think our answer here is like nuclear. Like we're sitting on like the world's largest depository of uranium. And we're asleep at the wheel. So like that I think is perhaps the long-term solution, because that actually creates a base load. And that's the one piece of the puzzle that is really hard to solve with clean energy renewables is, sun doesn't shine at night and the wind doesn't always blow. Today's really windy and really sunny. If we had solar panels and wind turbines out there where I am, they'd be lapping it up today. But the minute the wind goes away and the minute the sun sets, that's it. And it turns out when the sun goes down, people tend to use electricity.
Yep.
It's pretty shocking, but that's typically when they need to light their homes and cook their food. So, you remove the energy source and then you create additional demand. It's a recipe for disaster. So we need a baseload. And right now in the country, that baseload's coal and gas. And, that's also one of the enemies here in the political narrative. But I think we're really missing out on, again, I'm not an expert by any means. These are just some of my opinions that I've formed through reading and through researching and whatnot. I'm not saying I have the potential to build any of this stuff, but I do think it's one of the areas that we're not looking at. And we know all the nuclear FUD. It's been around for decades. But at some stage, someone's going to have to go, well, wait a minute. Maybe this is actually the answer. And I think Bitcoin ties into that nicely by offering a demand responsive customer, I guess you could say. When it's windy and sunny and no one needs to light up their homes, why waste all of that energy generation? Why not put it into something? Right now, batteries are not good enough to be able to do that, and we're not able to move them around. Electrons are difficult to shift from one area to the next. You lose a lot of them. So put a Bitcoin miner right there and plug it in and turn it on when there's excessive generation, and when there isn't and people need to light their homes, turn it off. And we've seen this experiment happen at scale in Texas with their grid. And it seems to be, I mean, I'm not in Texas, but from all reports, it seems to be working okay. So these are the kind of ideas I like to explore. And we'll be talking a lot about some of this stuff at Bitcoin Alive, actually.
I wanted to get into Bitcoin Alive. I got two more questions before we start talking about Bitcoin Alive. Yeah. That's good. So getting off zero Lightning, I know you've used Lightning a lot in El Salvador. We bought 2 t-shirts actually over Twitter over Lightning, which is awesome, from the other side of the world, straight to the vendor. The day-to-day use for Lightning, I know like previously you weren't using it so much. Since you've come back from the last trip to El Salvador, have you started using it more as a sort of daily driver or not so much?
I'd say slightly more. Not as much as I'd like, and that's partially or largely, I'd say, due to the fact that no one else is using Lightning. I've always been under the impression we've really got no reason to adopt Bitcoin and Lightning here in Australia. I mean, there are many reasons, but I mean, like pressing needs, like some other places of the world.
Sorry to cut you off, but so like when you use, say, Bitrefill, for example, because I use Bitrefill all the time.
Yeah.
I use Lightning like every single time because it's fast as hell and no fees. Like, have you sort of started to look into that?
I'm doing more of that now than what I was previously doing, which was simply loading Bitcoin onto my account and just taking from that account. So it's effectively I'm opening up a channel, but it's a centralized channel with Bitrefill, and it's totally custodial, and it's like putting money on an exchange and leaving it there until you're ready to buy. Yeah. But I have been using more Lightning lately. I used it just the other day. I think where was I? I was at Woolies. Yeah, I was doing my groceries at Woolies the other day, And yeah, I was at the checkout, the self-serve checkout, scanned everything, got my price, opened up Bitrefill, punched
Nice.
in the amount that I needed for gift card, um, paid with Lightning, opened up my Wallet of Satoshi app, and boom, there it is. By the time I got back to the Bitrefill screen, it was saying, here's your gift card. So I am using it more. Another cool thing I did the other day, which was just super random, and I felt like doing it because I saw it, and this attests me to the power of Bitcoin and Lightning, was a friend of mine who actually organizes a conference in El Salvador. She posted a tweet saying, here's a photo of Sandra, a lady from Peru, who's opening up a bakery in her local town. Does anyone want to send her some sats to wish her some luck and to help her out? And
awesome.
Posted her Lightning address.
Yeah.
And so I was like, sweet. I don't know Sandra, but she looks like a nice lady, and I wish her the best. And here's some sats.
That's
immediately
awesome.
someone from the other side of the world who she doesn't even know has, and we're seeing more of this on Nostra now as well with Zaps and stuff.
Zaps,
but that's just, you cannot do that with any other piece of technology in this world.
Nope. Yep, exactly right. Now,
you did that with a bank, it would take weeks potentially to get to Peru.
And probably not get there.
Yeah.
It's so magic, isn't it? You know what's weird though? Like I've had onboarding. I find Wallet of Satoshi like the best. It's quick, works, blah blah blah. There was a busker that I was chatting to recently. I didn't have any cash on me, so I thought, good chance to orange pill, right? Set him up. Boom, here we go. Didn't want a bar of it. He thought it was like a scam and like bad news, and was just like scared. I was just like, whoa, really? Like just from the press, I suppose, that he's probably seen on it, he's literally missing out on money. And I've seen that so many times. Like, you're trying to do the right thing with a guy who's got like no money in his like little hat that he had there. And I thought, this will be a nice thing to do. Such a strange thing. Whereas you can see, like, juxtaposed to that, this person on the other side of the world is like embracing the technology. And it's like, is it because that, Australians, even, buskers, or, people you wouldn't consider to be wealthy, are still relatively wealthy compared to someone from Peru, for example?
Yeah, I mean, interesting things to think about. But I don't know. It just felt really impulsive doing that the other day. Like, not something I typically would do, but I was like, Lightning. Like, this is a good opportunity to interact with it. I think once you've used it, and that was my big problem, was I never used it. There's a real underutilization of Lightning in Australia, and that's one of the things when I went to El Salvador and used it for the first time, because there was an actual reason and a way to use it, given that they accept it now. Yeah. Albeit obviously not everywhere, but I was able to interact with it at some places. And the following year as well, I came back and was like, holy shit, this is the real deal. It's not the thing that I had these weird, like, I had all these weird reasonings that like Lightning was not going to make it, and it was just purely because I didn't understand it. And, maybe I heard some FUD from I can't remember what my reasonings were because they're ridiculous. So I removed them from my lexicon, but I had some reasoning, and then I went there and used it and was like, holy fuck, throw that reasoning out the door. This thing, it's here to stay, and it's working, and people are using it, and the capacity is continually rising. And, it's solved the problem of 2017, 2018, where Bitcoin's too slow. It doesn't scale. It doesn't have enough TPS. Every blockchain was competing on TPS. Bitcoin only does 7 transactions a second or whatever it is. Ethereum does 20 or whatever. I don't even know what it does, but his nano does 10,000, like Lightning smashed it. Like, it solved it. It literally solved the problem.
It did. And in a really elegant way that makes it more decentralized as well, which is just like win-win. Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, there's another win too, and is that's partially solved the privacy problem too. Partially.
Yes. Yeah, partially. Like, I mean, as long as you're not using custodial, and the more channels that get opened up, it's definitely the way to go.
I wouldn't say it's easy. Again, like you said, there's easy mode and hard mode. Wallet of Satoshi's easy mode. Setting up your own node and running your own channels and all that sort of stuff is hard mode, and people fall within that spectrum. But yeah,
That was my last
Fantastic tool.
question to you. Is I know you run a node because we both have the same hardware, but you're running Umbral, right? For your node.
Yes.
Now, have you dabbled with Lightning channels with the node?
I've spent like 30 minutes setting because there's like a couple of different Lightning clients that you can use.
Heaps.
So I downloaded a couple of them, and then I think I started with one. I can't remember which one it was. I haven't looked at my node for a while.
It is pretty complicated, I have to
It
say.
is pretty complicated. And so I looked at it for 30 minutes thinking like, I'll give it 30. That's usually how I approach things. I'll give something like 15, 30 minutes. And then if I can't have some level of success to like convince me to go further, then I'll drop it until something else comes and like reignites that flame.
It needs to get easier, that's for sure. Because like even I've opened channels with friends, set them up, and then like messed it all up and like lost the sats. Like it's pretty easy to do. So I think that needs to get perfected. I think in the interim, yeah, probably like utilizing some of it. Like I know a Blue Wallet's just gone like full non-custodial as of recently. So that's going to be a challenge for people, and I get why they're doing it, but it's maybe too early. Like maybe we need to onboard more people and sort of teach them how to set up channels properly. And like you go online and it's kind of disjointed, like the education that's out there. It's kind of read this and then hop onto this, and like there's all these different clients you can use. It's like, oh man, it's like it's
there's a
overwhelming.
lot of like assumptions of prior knowledge too. Like, oh,
Yes.
you sure you know command line.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
some people have never seen command line in their entire life. Like
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look, I'm a hardcore Bitcoiner, and even I am not running channels like a crazy madman because I am reasonably technical, but at the same time, like these things are still a little challenging. And I can't imagine how it would be for someone who hasn't been around for 10 years like I have.
Yeah.
So that's why you've got to put people where they're going to be most comfortable, because it's a long it's part of the whole lower your time preference ethos of Bitcoin. It's everything, every little aspect of it, whether it comes to dollar cost averaging and buying or your own education and upskilling. It teaches you to think long term, to not think short fast like the current economy is. Like you buy a t-shirt, you wear it once, and then you don't see it again. Like Bitcoin is the opposite of that.
yeah. Complete opposite. So yeah, finally Bitcoin Alive. So I'm super excited. The Australia's first Bitcoin only conference. Is that technically true? Was there one like years and years ago?
Well, we came out with that, and then someone said, "Hey, there was one years ago," but like I hadn't heard of it. I don't know much about it. I don't know if they're just saying like they called it a conference, but it was 30 dudes in a meetup.
It was like a meetup. Yeah.
I don't know, but like if they're first, they're first. If not, we're first. I mean, at the end of the day, like we're putting it back on the map, and
absolutely,
it's not going to be the last. Like that this thing's here hopefully to stay, and is going to be here on a yearly basis. So like he will have somewhere to congregate every year, and it'll be the latest and greatest in terms of speaker talent, agenda, content, all that sort of stuff. It's well overdue, well deserved. We have a lot of amazing Bitcoiners here in Australia. It's time we pulled them all together.
Yeah, man,
and gave them the spotlight.
Props for putting it together, because I know it's a lot of work, and we can call it the first legit Bitcoin conference in Australia.
Let us pull it off first, and then call us legit.
I'm excited just from looking at the lineup and stuff. But no, I reckon it's going to be awesome. But yeah, props to you for putting it together, because I think a lot of people will really appreciate it. And I know like event management is like a nightmare to say the least. So yeah, hats off for doing it. But do you want to give us a run through on like some of the speakers and like what to sort of expect?
Yeah, I mean, sure, happy to. So yeah, for those who haven't heard, Bitcoin Alive is, like you said, Australia's first asterisk Bitcoin only conference. So there are plenty of amazing meetups in pretty much all of the major cities of Australia, but they're very disjointed, very disconnected. They don't speak to each other. Very few people even know what's happening in Perth if they're living in Sydney, and across the entire of our continent. There's just so much stuff happening, but they're just not connected. So first and foremost, we just want to bring all that together into one area on one day and see what happens. That I think that alone will be a magical experience for many people or many Bitcoiners in this country, because they're going to meet other Bitcoiners that they've never heard of. And they're going to learn some amazing things that they didn't know were happening. But yeah, we've got some pretty, like, it's a vast majority of Australians, either from here, living overseas, or there's a few internationals sprinkled in as well. But yeah, predominantly Australian talent for the speakers. We've dug up every little bit of the country to find anyone that's doing anything about Bitcoin to try get them involved. Awesome. Obviously, we can't have everyone because there's only so much space, but we've done our best given the time frame when we were looking for speakers. More are flooding in. Unfortunately, like, we're getting full. Like, we just actually finished the program before I got onto this podcast with you.
Cool.
So we're locked in for content on the main and the side stage. But yeah, full day conference. Doors will open at about 9. Content will finish at about 5:30. There'll be some networking for a couple of hours afterwards. Like I mentioned, there'll be 2 stages. So there'll be a big main stage where predominantly most of the content will be group style discussions and like moderated panels and fireside chats. There'll be a couple of solo presentations sprinkled in. But generally speaking, we're going to try to get as many people represented on that main stage so they get the big lights, the audience and all that sort of stuff.
Awesome.
But the side stage will focus on some of the more hands-on workshop type stuff. So how to set up a self-managed super fund and invest into Bitcoin, tax regulation, how to approach that sort of stuff. A little bit more controlled stuff, where on the main stage, like I said, we'll be doing more group stuff. So we're having discussions between different people to kind of get different flavors on certain topics. Nothing's kind of set in stone, so to speak. It's more of a conversation as it is than a presentation. But yeah, we got some amazing speakers like Knut Svanholm, who's a Bitcoin author, and he's well known around the Bitcoin circuits at these events. He's coming over from Europe, so
awesome.
That's going to be amazing. He's written a number of Bitcoin books. We'll have him actually doing a Bitcoin signing as well. So if anyone's got his books or would like to pick up his books, you'll be able to do that at the conference and get it signed by him. But yeah, some incredible names like Rusty Russell, the head of Lightning at Blockstream. So literally, the guy pushing Lightning technology from one of the the main. So cool. Yeah, very cool. Andy Pitt, another Aussie lady from Ego Death Capital. So she's at the forefront of investment and VCs when it comes to Bitcoin startups. So she's seeing the latest stuff. So she's going to have some really great insights into what's coming next. Obviously she's helping fund it and she's getting approached by people. So she's seeing all the stuff that's being built next before us plebs in the real world get it. James Check, analysis guru at Glassnode. He's the guy when it comes to stats and analysis. Cool. There's so many cool speakers. Like obviously you're going to be there talking about education. There's just so much stuff. There's so much content. There's almost something for everyone. If you're into energy infrastructure and proof of work, we've got tons of content on mining. If you're in, like I mentioned earlier, how to set up a self-managed super fund, we've got a workshop on how to do that.
That'll be interesting for sure. Yeah,
I think so. I made that move over the last sort of 12 months, and I know Andy is basically what he did and what he teaches is exactly what I did, because I think it was like the simplest way and the best way to do it. I'm sure there's many other ways, but yeah, that's going to be really interesting. We've got stuff where we've got like a surgical doctor talking about Bitcoin and how it relates to health and health funding and healthcare for the future. Like there's something, I think, for everyone. You don't have to be a technically minded hardcore Bitcoiner running your own node to enjoy the content at Bitcoin Alive. We've intentionally put this content together so it speaks to a lot of different people, because it's not just Bitcoin is so multifaceted. It touches so many different things, and not everyone's interested in all of them. Some people are purely interested in merchant adoption, and so we're going to have some workshops on merchant adoption and point of sale systems and stuff like that. Some people are interested in tax and regulation, and so there'll be stuff on that. So yeah, we're going to go live with the program shortly. We want to get it out there for people to go, okay, now I see all the stuff that's gone into this event. I can see why it's costing me $200 to get a ticket, even though that is exceptionally cheap for a Bitcoin conference. If you look at any of them around the world,
is it sold out yet?
No, we could fit plenty more Bitcoiners in. So tell your friends.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
use the promo code getoffzero.
There you go. But there will be price rises before April 15th. So like if anyone's thinking about it, you're only going to shoot yourself in the foot by waiting longer. We will try to get as much information like the program out as quickly as we can. And like I said, we're nearing it. So if people are like, I just want to see what's actually going to be spoken about on the day before I lock myself in, we'll try to get that in as quickly as we can. But at the same time, like, don't sleep on this. This is the first and biggest Bitcoin conference in Australia ever. So like, if you're remotely interested in this stuff, you're not going to get anything else even close to this anywhere without having to go to
Miami,
Europe or Miami or like there isn't even really anything in like Southeast Asia that focuses solely on Bitcoin. I mean, there might be a couple, but again, that's
what I was wondering. Have you pursued anyone from the Philippines at all with the Bitcoin project that's going on there?
Yeah, no, we haven't. But I think that's perhaps a year 2 thing. I only found out about that quite recently. I listened to a podcast where one of those guys was on it, and so yeah, it kind of came late into the piece for us. But there's so many stuff, right?
It's awesome.
Originally, this was going to be a 2-day conference because we knew we could fit it with stuff. There's always we could be on this podcast till midnight. We'd still not scratch the surface, and we'd be like, let's keep going. But we had to keep it reasonable for year 1. We didn't, we're self-funding this entire thing. We're taking the risk. This thing might not work out. I'm pretty confident it's going to be great for everyone that shows up. But yeah, we're not expecting to make a whole lot of money or any money, but if we do, then that's great. It's going to go towards next year and we do it again.
Awesome. Well done, my friend. I think it's going to be incredible. I can't wait to go. And I think, if you're thinking about going, make the trip. I know I've got a bunch of Bitcoiners from here coming up with me, so it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is the premier event in the Australian calendar. Like I'd say the Bush Bash would be probably like the next thing other than the local meetups. But that's harder to get to for a lot of people because it's in the middle of the country. It's a different kind of vibe. I'm looking forward to going to my first this year in Beechworth in Victoria in that's coming up soon, like 19 days. So a couple of weeks. That's going to be super fun, but it's a very different event. And I think this is peak season in Bitcoin. We got the Bush Bash and then 2 weeks later, Bitcoin Alive. Like it doesn't get any better.
Awesome.
If you're a Bitcoiner and you're in the country, like you're getting treated in March and April. Like we've got some heavy hitters in the country. We've got this amazing content put on across the 2 events. Like get to anything you can get to because you're going to have an amazing time.
Absolutely. Well, what's the best place for people to reach out for the conference and for yourself? Twitter, Nostr, what are you on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually you'll find me on Twitter most of the time. I'm experimenting with Nostr. I haven't gotten into the groove yet. I've started posting here and there some of my
you've got an iPhone, yeah?
No, I don't. I'm on an Android, so I think some of the Android clients are a bit
clunky,
not as nice.
I'm
using. Yeah, I hear Damus is really nice. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm on the wrong OS, so I'm stuck on a Metheist, if I'm pronouncing that right. But it's okay. I've started using it. I've been zapped.
It's just slow. That's the only thing. Like you kind of click and it's like, all right.
Yeah. So predominantly you'll find me on Twitter. Handles Lungdoge, LUNGDOGE. And no, I'm not interested in Dogecoin. It's named after my now unfortunately deceased Long Doge, which was a greyhound, Twigs. So if anyone's wondering why he's got Doge in his name, it's definitely not because I own any Doge. I hate Doge. I've never touched it. But yeah, find me on Long Doge. If you're interested in reaching out about the event, we're on Twitter as well at Bitcoin Alive. Our website is www.bitcoinalive.io. You can find all of the information about speakers, venue, tickets, all that sort of stuff, sponsors, exhibitors, blah, blah, blah. You'll find all of that stuff on our website. We're really active on our Twitter socials. So if you want to come have a chat, come have a chat. If there's something you want to see at the event, it's getting into a bit late into the piece, but this is an event for the Bitcoin community. So we want to do as much as we can to please the Bitcoin community. So if you've got something, we'll try to squeeze it in if we've got the power to be able to do it. But yeah, please reach out. I'm always happy to chat with other Bitcoiners, irrespective of where they're at in their journeys, whether they're starting off or they're even further beyond me. I want to hear from them all.
Hell yeah. Well, I've got you. Chuck us in the Telegram group before I forget to to jump in there.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks again, Chris, and we'll catch up soon. And yeah, really looking forward to the conference.
Looking forward to seeing you, man. Thanks for getting me on the pod. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. Talk soon.
See you, buddy.
Bye.